Hello and welcome to our first of many Capital School District Blue and White Table Talks. The Capital School District is the heartbeat of the First State. We are here today to have a critical conversation with leaders of the capital city about having strong schools that reflect 21st century skills. Our guests today are our beloved Mayor, Robin Christensen. Good morning, Mayor Christensen.
Good morning, Dr. Cade. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Of course, our State Senator Trey Pardee. Good morning, State Senator.
Honored to be part of the conversation.
And what would a conversation in the Capital School District be without a board member? Board member Vilicia Cade is joining us today. How are you today?
Great. It's my pleasure to be here.
So we're going to start the conversation with our mayor. Mayor Christensen, you're such a huge advocate for education. Many of your children, your wife's an educator in the Capital School District. In your vision of 21st century schools and education, what does that entail? What's your vision for 21st century education?
Well, thank you, Dr. Cade. I'm kind of parochial in my vision for the Capital School District. The mayor of the city of Dover is in charge of economic development, but we've been handed a great legacy, both the city of Dover and the Capital School District, as our city is where America started. So I think it's only appropriate that we carry that legacy forward and show to the nation and to the world the benefit of the new programs and innovation that you've brought to the Capital School District. So we support those 1,000%. It's an economic development tool. It's a no-brainer that we want the best schools for our students, not only today, but to preserve our legacy and the legacy we're going to pass on to our citizens in the future. So outstanding works.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, you know, as we talk about K-12 being the hub of economic development, and the mayor spoke to that, Ms. Duggins, you're a former and retired educator and now serving on the school board in the Capital School District. What does your vision for 21st century schools look like?
Thank you. As a former business teacher, retired principal, and new school board member, I have watched how schools have changed drastically over the past decade. I have 5 grandchildren who are impacted by the 21st century learning environment within our district. My twin granddaughters are currently attending an elementary school because of the Spanish immersion program. Their mother understands the importance of minimally being bilingual. They have been involved in that program since they were kindergartners, and they're now in the 4th grade. This is an important aspect to 21st century skills because our students nowadays have to be able to, well, they benefit by speaking more than one language. They no longer compete just locally and nationally for job opportunities, but they also compete internationally. Our students having the advantage of speaking another language positions them to accept opportunities globally with confidence.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I'm going to shift over to our legislator, and certainly having Senator Pardee be a resident in our district, being very visible in our schools. From a legislative perspective, how do you support school districts like the Capital School District in our efforts in trying to evolve to strengthen our 21st century approaches?
So I think you can't talk about 21st century education without talking about communication and technology and the way that it continues to evolve, and to the way it changes how coursework is developed in the classroom, but also in terms of how it affects the daily lives of kids growing up today, and the needs to understand and be proficient in technology and communication skills, you know, once a young person enters the workforce. So I think it is important that that we recognize that we understand that, And there are a couple steps that we need to continue to work towards. One, there are still some internet gaps in parts of the Capital School District, particularly out in the area of Hartley, Marydale. We want to make sure that young people who live out in those areas have access to the internet, and not just have access to the internet, but actually have a decent connection. But also making sure that we are getting technology into the hands of students at a younger age, and with take-home technology. So if a family does not have the means to have a computer at home, that we are providing that so that child does not fall behind. So I think continuing to invest in technology, introducing children to it at a younger age is going to continue to be important. But also, we have an issue right now in Delaware that we do not have enough young people entering the teaching profession. You look at the applications for at our higher educational institutions, the number of young people who are going to college for the purpose of becoming a teacher has dropped dramatically over the last few years. So some of the things that we're doing in the legislature to address that are going to deal with teacher pay. We heard the governor talk recently about the significant investments that we're going to be making on a state level. I assume that the boards will also, up and down the state, but perhaps here in the Capital School District as well, be joining in that effort with some local funds as well. But it's not just pay. We need to do more to make the teaching profession more enticing and improve the quality of the experience for our teachers, addressing some of the issues of behavioral issues of some of the young folks. And so we've got some work to do, but I think certainly we're heading in the right direction in terms of, again, the investments in technology, the investments in the next generations of teachers.
Absolutely, and I think that absolutely legislating new opportunities around the pay increase, and we recently had some issues with certification in trying to just attract more people. So, Mayor Christensen, you have a wife who is a teacher in the district. You have a son who serves on the school board, and all of your children have graduated from the Capital School District. Tell us about your different experiences. So I want to hear about your experiences with your grandchildren, but let's start with Mayor Christensen in terms of the experiences that your family has had, your children, your grandchildren, your wife in the Capital School District. You can pick any of those.
Well, Dr. Cade, I don't want to leave out one of my daughters who is also in the Spanish immersion program. She teaches at South Dover, and she is a very, very proficient teacher. She takes after her mother. If I could just divert really quickly to something that Senator Pardee mentioned about take-home technology. During the pandemic, I was in the front row seat to see some of the frustration that my wife went through with the children who had take-home technology, but their parents were not able to help the children master that technology. So just to piggyback on something that he said, Dr. Cade, is that maybe we need to, in anticipation of who knows what could happen down the road that might divert us back into another situation where the children have to go rely on that technology, that we offer classes for the parents and grandparents of those children who are going to have to take that technology home. Just a thought. But I'd like to respond to your question about what I've observed. And there is not a better educational opportunity, and it continues to grow in quality as the Capital School District. My wife is a 43-year teacher. She is going to very reluctantly retire at the end of the year, but I have two other daughters that are teachers. One of my daughters is a swim coach for the Dover High School swim team. So we are totally invested and totally supportive of the Capital School District.
You have a former Capital School District Teacher of the Year in your family?
Yes, I do. Thank you for bringing that out, Senator. I was remiss in that. But I would like to tell you that my success in my life, in business and in other industries, and being a public servant, I can directly lay at the feet of my mother and my father, who inspired me, service to others, but also the influence and the teachers and the guidance counselors had on me to go into public service. And I laid that all at the feet of the Capital School District. So you've got a big cheerleader here, always will, always have been, always will be. And I think it's time that everybody join you, the school board, support our teachers, support your children, because of the legacy that we all are obligated to carry forward, but it's our responsibility.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that I know that is most unique about Capital School District is that Senator pride. And what we see is generations, multiple generations going through the system and then returning to serve in the system and just to support us through resources and partnerships. And so, Board Member Duggins, I believe that, you know, you have some experiences with the Capital School District, and we want to hear all about those.
Okay, as a board member, I feel that our students have been given opportunities that I have not seen in other districts, and I've worked in 4 other districts. One, giving all of our students, each and every one, an opportunity to learn multiple languages and to receive rigorous instruction. They're engaged in programs that expand their ability to express their uniqueness and diversity. They have experiences to use their voice. My grand twins, they're very shy, and I went with their mother to their parent-teacher conference, and they were actually given the voice, and they made the presentation, used their data, and they're very shy. And for the teachers to get them to be able to do that, I was very impressed.
Absolutely. So she's referring to our student-led conferencings, which is one of the newer things as we think about 21st century skills and we think about creativity and collaboration and communication. We know that our young people today, not outside of just media literacy and technology literacy, that they will have to be proficient public speakers, collaborators with people from very diverse backgrounds as they are global citizens. And so we try to bolster those experiences, and joining the League of Innovative Schools was one of the things that I sought out during my first year, because I know that that membership is going to expose our district to opportunities that are outside of our state, but bring that innovation into our state to share with other districts. And so I'm just excited about what we're doing here in the Capital School District. And we're going to take a break now, and we're going to hear from other guests about this topic. Thank you.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware. We are digital platform innovators. And we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Welcome back. Before the break, we had a great discussion about 21st century skills in the Capital School District. Now joining us for part 2 of that conversation is Desmond Wynn of the Rockford Center. How are you, Desmond?
I am doing well, and I appreciate the invite for this blue and white table talk.
Thank you so much for joining us. And again, Senator Trey, I guess you decided to stay, huh?
Decided to stick around. Pleasure to be here.
Yep. Absolutely. And what would a conversation be without the infamous Reverend Dr. John Moore of the United Way?
Delighted to be here as we live united.
Absolutely. Now let's go back to the conversation, and I'm going to talk about how community-based organizations can be partners in supporting our efforts to really create successful 21st century schools. And we know that COVID is going to have some implications for this as we move into the next 10 years, right? So what does that look like from your perspective, Desmond, as a mental health provider who's doing this work across the state?
Well, this is what we know. The trauma that COVID has caused has allowed students to fall back on their behavioral needs. We know this, schools are a source for mental health help. And without that, technology is coming into play. They're using it more. You think about being out for all those two plus years, and what has it caused? It has caused more students to not talk about what they're going through.
Absolutely. We've seen a real uptick in anxiety and depression in our young people. And, you know, I had the opportunity to work with you when I was here in Newcastle County. And I remember this one time that we had an opportunity to bring principals to the table to talk about when kids come from Rockford Center, which is a mental health psychiatric facility, and they transition back. So as we think about COVID and opening schools and kids coming back and that increase in social, emotional, and mental health issues, what does that look like in the future for 21st century schools?
You know, what it looks like is there has to be more collaboration. There has to be more programs put in place, more developments, more access to resources, an ideal of understanding that the outside also works in with the inside. Schools need to collaborate with the referral sources, and referral sources need to collaborate with the schools. There's been many times, and I do remember that when you brought the principals to the school, my focus was always if they understood what the child was going through, if they're seeing their living arrangements, if they saw the programming, they'll have a better understanding of how to help these kids when they come back to schools. And that was one of the issues. And with COVID happening and children and students coming back to schools, adding the wellness into your Dover High School. And it's also said for elementary schools, adding wellness in will help with less referrals for special education. It will help with attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorder. And all those things can be, you start young, we can take care of it when they get older.
Absolutely. So, you know, United Way played a real pivotal role in the Capital School District getting a grant for a wellness center at East Elementary School. And, you know, Mr. Wynn or Desmond is correct, you know, having those resources right in the school in the 21st century that will really help maintain kids and families continuity of care, right?
Yes.
You know, because schools become the hub of the community, and a lot of what plays out in social problems in the greater community comes into the schools. And so as we think about the needs of our students and our families, having wellness centers, not just in high schools, but in elementary schools, and I think is where you was going. Those partnerships, right? Because United Way wrote that grant, co-wrote a grant for us. So how do you see those community partnerships playing out in your role and what the United Way does? And then I'll go back over to you, Trey, because I know you got something to say, okay?
Yeah, I think it's very laser focused on one word, and it's holistic. So we realize that we want to make sure that our children are capable of achieving their dreams and being able to do the things that they have goals for. And so we do everything from an academic standpoint to prepare that child, but you know what? The success of that child is not going to be really strong from a foundation if the home is not right. So you want to make sure that the parents are taken care of as well. So when you talk about the work of what community-based organizations are doing, along with the educational factors that are being taken place, but then we got to look beyond that. You got to look at what's happening with the faith-based community. They got to be involved in the whole picture, as well as our businesses. And so when I think about this, Dr. Cade, I think of it this way. You know, I was fortunate for 18 years to serve as a youth pastor in a school that was right there within that Capital School District community. And it didn't matter if my kids came from Manchester or came from Capitol Park, or if they went to Penwood, or if they lived in Wild Quail. Didn't make a difference if the resources were placed in front of them to allow them not only as a child to succeed, but their families. So, you know, a couple of the nonprofits that I'd love to call out right now is organizations like neighborhood partners
Oh,
who
absolutely.
help out with housing, who help out with financial empowerment. And that's helping those families because you got to have the money in order to take care of those necessities. Then I think about organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs who are giving our kids after-school programs to be able to keep them focused on the things they need to do. People's Place handling some of those challenges, especially with our kids
Green
that are
Beret
in
Project.
foster care.
Oh,
and making a big difference. And then I think about First State Community Action Agency, like, for instance, their Freedom Schools. So, you know, we're fortunate to have a great program like the Capital School District working with our kids during the day.
Absolutely.
But in the morning, mom and dad need to be right. In the evening, our CBOs need to be working right along with
Absolutely.
you to get the most we can get out of
I
our
want
kids.
to put a linchpin in right there when you talked about, some of these services. And I want to shift over here to our legislator. And I know that legislators play a critical role in ensuring, and you as the chair of the Finance Committee, Trey, tell us a little bit about how you guys are supporting some of the work that they talked about, particularly as it pertains to mental health and wellness in those partnerships.
So I'll start by saying this. If you look at what's really driving our budget, one of the big items, particularly in the spending for schools, is the demand for special services.
Yeah.
You have more kids today with ADHD, other learning issues, they're, or on the autism spectrum. There's just a greater demand for that. And so that demand continues to go up. We've passed some pretty significant pieces of legislation over the last couple of years to add mental health supports at the elementary and middle school. You will see legislation this year, I believe, to add additional mental health supports at the high school level. But one of the problems that we have as a state, and certainly in Kent County, is just a real lack of qualified providers.
Yeah.
Now, Delaware State University has an excellent program, so we need to make more investments in that. So, because if we're creating these positions in our schools, we have to have qualified people to fill them. And at the same time, in the private sector, and Desmond can speak to this better than I can, there's a real shortage of qualified mental health providers out there, particularly in Kent and Sussex County.
You are correct. Psychiatrists, I think Rockford Center has more psychiatrists than the whole state of Delaware. When you start going down, the further you go down, last I had an understanding, there was maybe one or two psychiatrists in Sussex, and I don't know how many are in Dover, but that's a real struggle when it comes to, because when you think about a child that's on psychiatric meds, you need someone who's just able to fill those meds. And when you don't have the qualified services, where do they go? Right. They go back to their primary care doctors who are not comfortable with filling those meds. So what happens? They come to schools, and schools have no clue of how they should care for this child.
Right.
So I'm going to shift the focus back to what those services look like in 21st century schools. We absolutely respect that. We have support through legislation for funding to provide those units or those people to do the services. And we have a whole nother conversation about workforce shortfalls in terms of having the people, right, qualified to do the jobs. But as we think about strong 21st century schools, what does it look like in a day-to-day issue is, and so we have models like in Akron and across our nation where schools have evolved as the sort of the hub of the community. And oftentimes parents come to the school through the wellness center. It's not just for the kids, but it's for the staff, it's for the kids at the school, and it's for the community. And so when we think about those services, right, we're seeing more and more food pantries in schools, right? So what does it look like in a 21st century school? Because we know that 21st century skills, communication, critical thinking, all of those things are important, but we also understand that COVID's unfolding for many years to come necessitates.
And the nonstop bombardment of social media.
Absolutely.
And everything that the kids are dealing with.
Absolutely.
Every day, right? The violence they see on TV.
If I could say something specifically about the mission of what we do at United Way. Our mission and our vision is to advance the common good, to create opportunities for all people. with an impact that children, individuals, and families succeed. So, Dr. Cade, as you're talking about what can we do in order to advance that 21st century student, it takes that old cliche, it takes a village. It takes all of us coming together. I'm so proud to be sitting here with Desmond and, of course, with the senator and yourself, because all of us are working collectively in order to be able to make this impact. So when you think about it from this perspective, you think, okay, I'm not the subject matter expert in regards to what I can do. So we have an outreach. Through the United Way of Delaware, you can contact us 3 numbers, 211. Yep. And by calling just those 3 digits, I can get access to practically every resource that I need, not only for my child, but also for our families. So we need to be able to do those types of things. And then some of the programs that we're directly involved in, my very own library, helping children to get free books, our learning pods that's assisting with our after-school programs. And then with our work with organizations like Pathways to Success, who are coming under the United Way's umbrella to be able to give kids other options. Everybody don't want to go to college. Yep. I know this from serving 20 years in the United States Air Force and working in the background, to where if you didn't go to college, if you learned a trade, if you learned something that made you capable of being able to earn a good income, you can be able to go ahead and help that kid still succeed. And so the United Way, through all of our collaboration with great partners in our community, we're able to open up doors that once were closed.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the diversity that we see in public schools. There's research that tells us that more and more by 2025, the majority of children in public schools will be low-income kids and children of color, right? And so as we think about that demographic, we know that diversity, one of the key elements to being a successful 21st century global citizen, is empathy, right? And understanding. We're seeing more and more diversity in our schools. So teaching kids empathy is a part of a 21st century skill. And I know everybody wants to talk about the technology, artificial intelligence, and all those other pieces, but we need to talk about, you know, a lot of the issues that are coming up around.
Just understanding that we're all human.
Absolutely,
yes.
yeah. So,
and I believe not taking the personalization out of it. No matter, we're talking mental health and we're talking the change. How can you connect with a child or adolescent and they can see your body language and your tone and everything's coming out your mouth is not matching? So why should I trust you? I'm having these issues, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna keep it to myself. And that's where we see the problems arise.
Okay, so I think, you know, we've had such a robust conversation here, and we know that teaching our kids, giving them the media literacy skills, giving them the opportunity to be creative, honing in on communication and collaboration.
Someone to talk to.
Thank you, Trey. That's the bottom line, right? At the end of the day, we're all still people. And I've been talking about this whole leading with love piece, right? That is a huge part of it. And so I don't know about you guys, but I had a great time talking with you all. You're a rambunctious kind of group, but we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for letting us come into your homes today. Be sure to check out our website and social media platforms. Go Senators!